Remember that Deputy Chief Tim Boucher was actually following Jenna Trammell as well?
I wasn't aware that he was following her. I was aware she was following me, and I called him to come verify that she was sitting in the parking lot of the Chinese restaurant watching me while I was inside.
And you saw Jenna Trammell, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And did you ever become aware of any relationship that Jenna Trammell had with Cindy Wilson?
Yes, I did.
What was that relationship?
She lived in, from what I could understand or what I was told by Joey, that
this would be hearsay, connection, relationship, if there's any, and/or speculation.
I'll link it up to Mother Wagner.
That'll be fine. First question.
On the occasion that you were at the Chinese restaurant, and forgive me, but I can't remember the name of that restaurant. What was the name? It's something Walk, right?
Master's Walk.
That's Walk.
Yes.
Where is that exactly?
Well, it was in Pruitt. I think it was in Pruitt Shopping Center at the time, but it's now moved. It's next to Bojangles on Main Street.
Is the Pruitt Shopping Center in downtown Andersonsville?
It's further up north, just before you get to the mall. It's up in that direction.
It's in the city limits?
Mm-hmm.
You called Deputy Chief Tim Boucher to say Jenna Trammell's following, right?
Yes, I did.
And Tim Boucher came out and he confirmed that, right?
Yes, sir, he did.
And in fact, when he came out, Deputy Chief Tim Boucher had Joey Preston in the car with him, didn't he?
I don't recall seeing Joey in the car, but he may have been.
Did you ever become aware of an instance where Jenna Trammell was or had a judgment entered against her for $10 million for defamation?
I just learned about that recently. I didn't until then. I didn't keep up with her.
There were instances where Deputy Chief Tim Boucher was actively investigating Jenna Trammell, were there not?
He was investigating her as part of the investigation because she was heavily involved with the stalking and what they suspected was like the letter writing.
And there was an instance where Deputy Chief Boucher was attempting to get Jenna Trammell's fingerprints. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
And that was on a different night than the Chinese Walk restaurant night, right?
I think so, yes, sir.
And in that instance, Deputy Chief Tim Boucher actually met with Jenna Trammell at some point or someplace downtown in an effort to try to get her fingerprints so she can compare it to those harassing anonymous letters that you were having sent out under your name, right?
That's what I was told, yes, sir.
There was an instance when you were working for Anderson County when you actually wrote a letter to the Anderson County Council. Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
And did it complain about a specific council member?
Miss Wilson.
And in your view, was that a warranted complaint?
Yes,
Why was it warranted?
because she was saying things that were not true about me.
And they were unfair, weren't they?
They were.
And they were defamatory, weren't
Yes, they were.
they? And you felt like you were being targeted.
Yes, I did.
And the reason why you were being targeted was because Miss Wilson was out to try to harm Preston in some way, right?
That was my perception.
Miss Wilson said things about you that were somewhat unconscionable, right? I mean, she questioned your ability to do your job.
That's correct.
And the truth is, you took a lot of pride in your job. didn't you?
Yes, I did. I loved my job.
And you worked really hard.
Yes, sir, I did.
And you were good at it.
Yes, sir, I was.
And for whatever reason, due to your relationship with Mr. Preston, or at the time, the suspected relationship, Ms. Wilson was targeting you and saying all sorts of things about you, right?
Yes, sir.
And she even went so far as to say those things about you on WAIM radio, didn't she?
I didn't personally hear it. I just heard that she had said those things.
There came a time while this was happening when you learned that she went on the radio and said these things about you.
Yes.
Didn't she accuse you of wearing inappropriate clothing at work?
Yes.
The city county council member is accusing somebody who's working in the stormwater division of wearing inappropriate clothes to work. Right?
Objection.
Correct.
Mr. Davis has complained plenty about the extent of questioning, and I see no bearing whatsoever on this particular line.
Your Honor.
We get one far field on.
Yes, Your Honor, but remember, one of the things that the county has said in this case, which has been interesting, was that Mr. Preston did have a claim for liability during that period of time when he first asserted his claim on September 25th of 2008 up until the severance agreement. And that one of the things that we defended on is we've shown that there was a lawsuit that was filed. It was filed against Bob Walker and Cindy Wilson. And that one of Mr. Preston's primary job functions is to supervise employees. And we've also shown that there was a situation where the Anderson County Council subsequently ratified the behavior of those two as official conduct. And we've also shown that there was an order that was entered by the court that said that they did in fact interfere with that conduct. And now we have, for the first time, an employee in Anderson County at that time who is talking about actual specific instances that she's encountered wherein she had her job duties interfered with by the city and county council. And in fact, she was one of the people who was referenced in that lawsuit. So it's just going to establish the concreteness of those facts.
He's going to have to tie that in, Your Honor, because a lot of what he's asking, you'll notice, are questions about what did you hear so-and-so said? Did Ms. Wilson...
Well, if you want to object on hearsay, that's one thing, but you made an objection on relevance.
Yeah, the other one would be lack of foundation. So if he wants to present evidence that she actually knows of direct contact between Ms. Wilson and her about complaining about her job, that's what he's trying to get at, he says, so let's have to do that. But can't do it this backdoor way of saying, did you hear that Ms. Wilson might be complaining about her she wore to work?
Your Honor, I came through the front door. I asked her about the letter she wrote to the county council wherein she complained specifically about Cindy Wilson.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection.
Not get you some more.
I'm fine, thank you.
I almost had to
You
take
might
a-
hurt yourself.
I almost had to take a read. Let's do this. Kelly. May I approach the witness?
You may.
May I approach the bench?
Yes. Thank you.
Let's go at it a different way. Kelly, do you remember writing this letter?
Yes, I do.
Is that your signature or under sincerely?
Yes.
In this letter, in the second sentence, you state, and I quote, "I respectfully request that you take whatever steps you can to stop one of your members, Ms. Cindy Wilson, from continuing to make false and slanderous statements about me." End quote. Do you see that?
Yes.
Was that statement true?
Yes.
In the next paragraph, you state, and I quote, "Ms. Wilson has made false and slanderous statements about me in a letter to you, and I personally heard it being read on the WAIM morning radio show by Mr. Rick Driver, who is a known supporter of Ms. Wilson." End quote. Was that statement true?
As I said before, I did not hear it. Can I say something? Can I explain?
You have the right to explain any answer you give me.
This letter was written for me, and I had to retype it. Okay? I did not write this letter.
Did you put it in your own words?
No, I did not. I retyped it word for word by what it was given to me.
Was it false?
I didn't hear it on WAIM. That part would be false. I was given this letter to sign and to send.
Did you agree to send a false letter?
No, I did not agree. I did this because I was told to do this.
But it contains things that are false.
The part about WAIM in this letter, I did not hear it. But everything else is true.
Everything else is true. Okay.
But I wrote this letter, I signed this letter because I was told to.
But the contents of the letter was true.
Except for the part where I heard it on WAIM.
And then down below, there's parts about Ms. Wilson having attacked your moral character by stating that the sheriff's department is investigating you. Was that true?
She did.
Down below it says Mrs. Wilson's statements are defamatory and she's intentionally trying to hurt me. Was that true?
Yes, that was true.
At some point, Kelly, you filed a motion for a restraining order against Gina Trammell.
Yes, I did.
And in so doing, you submitted an affidavit with the court.
Yes, I did.
And that affidavit outlined various facts about how Ms. Trammell had systematically harassed you and followed you, right?
Yes.
There was another instance of harassment too, wasn't there? There was a guy named Turk Culbertson.
Yes, that was the most recent one
And that was all the way up.
from 2006.
Yeah. And then the restraining order you filed in that case was in 2011, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were instances where you would see Turk Culbertson literally just creep in front of your house in his car.
Yes, sir.
And while he was doing that, he'd come out and he would stare at you in a weird way.
Yes, sir.
And that happened with a fair amount of frequency, didn't it?
Yes, sir, it did.
And at some point during that process, you filed a report, as you should have.
Yes, sir.
With the Anderson County Sheriff's Department. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
And before you even got that report back as the victim, the next morning, you heard Rick Driver talking about it on WAIM radio, didn't you?
I don't recall hearing it myself because I was usually at work doing my job when they were on the air, but someone would ultimately call me and tell me that that was the case, yes.
And in fact, that very next day, after you filed that police report, Mr. Culbertson went on the radio himself and was talking about it, as you understood.
That's what I was told, yes.
Now, I want to turn your attention to Cater's Lake. And I want to try to see, in the same kind of vein, what we could agree about that night. And maybe there may be stuff we disagree about, but that's okay. I just do what we can agree about. That night occurred on March 10th of 2006.
Yes.
I assume that cross-examination is the subject of your prior objections.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
I'll make that notation. You may proceed.
That night, do you remember going to Sullivan's?
Yes, sir.
When you were at Sullivan's, you were there, and Mr. Preston were there.
Yes, sir.
And there was a lady named Marlene McLean. Remember Marlene McLean?
Yes.
And then Marlene McLean had a couple friends with her too. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
And did you at some point become aware that Marlene McLean was actually the underling to Tim Boucher? Did you know that?
No.
Did you at some point that evening learn that Tim Boucher was expected to come out to Sullivan?
No. Joey told me that he was going to try to, but he didn't know if he was going to get there or not.
But you remember Joey telling you that Tim Boucher was going to try to come out there that night, right?
That's what I said, yes.
At some point while you were at Sullivan's with that group, somebody mentioned Gina Trammell to you. Remember that?
Yes.
And understandably, the reference to Gina Trammell.
Just this.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
In the way this person was presenting to you was somewhat upsetting, right?
Yes.
Because Gina Trammell was stalking, and
She was a bad person.
and then here's this person at Sullivan's trying to tell you Gina Trammell's so great, and you weren't going to listen to that.
No, I wasn't.
And so the consequence of that dialogue was that you left. You got up and left. You were mad. You got up and
I
left.
said my piece and I got up and left, yes.
And then Joey stayed there for a short time with Marlene McLean.
Yes.
And after you had left for about 10 or 15 minutes, you phoned Joey. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And Joey then left himself. And,
Yes.
and he met up with you somewhere down around the courthouse area in Anderson, right?
No.
Where did you meet up with you?
I didn't meet up with him at any time once I left. I was in my car. I was driving down Main Street. I turned down right to go down Granville Street, and he called me.
And then did he come at some point and follow you?
Yes, he was behind me somewhere.
And then at some point, the decision was made to turn left on 81 into Caters Lake Park.
He told me to go there, so I did.
Now, just let's clear something up for purposes of the record, so that the radio crowd doesn't have a field day. Excuse me. Nothing sexual happened in the park that night.
No, sir.
We can agree about that.
Very much so.
When you arrived at the park that night, you and Mr. Preston were out of your vehicles. You went down to a pretty well-lit area. Is that right?
We sat in his car for a little while and listened to James Bond music and laughed. Then-
How romantic.
Yes. And then we shortly got out of his vehicle and walked down to the edge of the lake.
And then after a short time, the Anderson City Police showed up, right? With the blue lights flashing.
I don't recall seeing the blue lights, I just remember seeing the spotlight on us.
And then you walked back to your vehicles and you both just exited out of Gators Lake Park.